Hello, this is Braden Kelley of blogginginnovation.com, here with Judy Estrin, author of Closing the Innovation Gap, who is also a serial entrepreneur. Here today to talk briefly at the innovation conference that the Economist is putting on about innovation ecosystems and what it really takes to build a quality innovation ecosystem, all the people that play together in order to do that. So what do you want to start with in relation to that topic?
Okay, well, I wrote a whole book on the subject, so to sum it up in a couple of minutes is tough. But let me just say a couple of things, which is that the first thing starts with the word innovation, that many people think of just as a soundbite, and there actually are many different types of innovation. And one of the problems is that you need a range of different types of innovation to have a healthy innovation ecosystem. So what do I mean by that? There's incremental innovation, or incrementalism, which is small changes in the way you do things, or new products that are built on existing technologies. And then there are breakthrough innovations that come from research, for instance. New discoveries like the discovery of DNA or rDNA or the transistor or the internet are all breakthrough types of innovations. And there's a whole range in between. So the first thing to understand is that when people say there's innovation all around us, you need to make sure that we're not just doing the incremental innovation, which there is a lot of incremental innovation going on, but that we're also investing and planting those seeds for the future of what will become the breakthrough innovations. And the problem with breakthroughs is when you invest, you have no idea where you're going. You're really investing in a journey of discovery. And so one of the things you need to have a healthy innovation ecosystem is different organizations working together on these different types of innovation. And so corporations tend to work on more incremental innovation. In research today, although it wasn't always, but today is mostly the purview of academia or some research labs. And then there's who funds innovation. So again, on the incremental innovation, that typically is funded in the private sector by the commercial markets or by companies that tend to be more short-term focused. But we need to be doing the investment in the longer term also, and that funding tends to come from a combination of federal funding and nonprofit foundation type of funding. So the key thing is the word ecosystem comes from biology, and a biological ecosystem needs to be in balance to sustain life. And the fact of the matter is that in an innovation ecosystem, if we're going to have ongoing, thriving life in innovation, the innovation ecosystem, it too needs to be balanced, and we can't go to one extreme or the other.
Very much so. And then as you talk about innovation ecosystems, and as you talk about especially the disruptive innovations, one thing that people often forget is that really disruptive technologies and really disruptive business models often take a lot of time. Right. So the iPod didn't happen overnight. You know, that took 20 years for digital music players to result in the iPod coming around. Southwest Airlines took 20 years to start being this great business model that everybody wanted to try to copy, and people like Delta and United failed at. So as people invest in these more disruptive technologies, what needs to happen to move over that long time period for somebody to ultimately be successful in the market?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is the recognition, and this is one of the problems we have as a country, and I would actually say even globally, is that we've become more and more impatient over the last several decades. And so there are fewer and fewer organizations who are actually willing to make those bold risks, willing to make those investments that may not benefit them in the short term. But I think that people who, one of the reasons why it's important to have federal funding or nonprofit funding for research is that it tends to benefit not a single organization, but it is a benefit to an industry or a benefit to society. And so that is why it typically is not the purview of a single investor, because they are usually oriented towards their returns. And you can't measure the returns of the more breakthrough investment in the time frames that most investors want their money back in. And one of the things that's very important is how you measure this more breakthrough innovation is only in hindsight. You can't measure it as you're going along, because the fact of the matter is that you have many failures along that road to success. And sometimes it's a failure that actually brings about the discovery that leads to an innovation. And so the thing that makes more breakthrough innovation uncomfortable for lots of people is you simply can't measure it along the way. You can only look in hindsight, and you don't even know you're working on a breakthrough when you're working on it. You just know that you're working to further understanding, or you're looking for something, or you're curious, or you're asking questions. And if you're lucky, and if the world is lucky, it leads to the internet, or it leads to the discovery of DNA. But when you start out, you're really just starting out with a question that may actually not look at all like where you end up. And so you really have to embrace the notion of failure and learning from failure as a core element of what it takes to have breakthrough innovation. A quote that is often used is, "Today's breakthrough was yesterday's crazy idea." And you really don't know it's a breakthrough sometimes until years later, when you have realized that there was some discovery that was the foundation that led to all of these other things. And what it takes is willing to trust your gut, trust your instinct. You don't have proof when you're working on it. We just listened to a panel where somebody said that we're not teaching our kids enough to form hypothesis. We're just teaching them how to reprove the hypothesis. They're always there. And the thing that I always say is, we're not teaching our kids, and we as adults are not spending enough time thinking about framing the questions that need to be answered. We're so focused on taking tests and answering the questions that already exist. So how you frame a question, how you ask a question, and then patience, and the patience and tenacity to work through things, to invest in something and know it's going to take a while, are some of the key elements.
Right, and I think that when it comes to education, that's one of the themes that comes up a lot, is that we need to learn how to teach people to ask better questions so that we can get ultimately better answers. You don't jump right to the answer. The question is often the most important thing.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if you're a parent, but everybody has experience with kids. Kids start off inherently curious. Kids ask lots of questions, and if you think about it, we move them through life and through the education system. We actually drill it out of them. And so we educate that questioning out of our students today, because we're so focused on teaching to the test. And really, we need to rethink the whole method in which we're teaching to embrace the notion of inquiry-based education and learning not just a subject. You need a foundation of subjects, but you need to learn how to learn. You need to learn how to adapt, because if there's one thing we know about the future, it's about change. And those students who go into the world knowing how to adapt, knowing how to learn, knowing how to question, knowing how to explore, are way more skilled for the 21st century than those students who graduate with very specific skills.
All right, well, there you have it. What question are you going to ask? So again, this has been Braden Kelley of blogginginnovation.com, and Judy Estrin, author of Closing the Innovation Gap, and also a serial entrepreneur.